Hi, I'm Doyle Banks. I'm coming to you in this video in the month of April, and if you've seen any of the previous videos from the last couple of weeks, you know that April is Couples Appreciation Month. So continuing on that theme, this week I'm going to share with you 5 books that are recommended by experts for couples to read to help enhance their relationships, and a card game, a fun card game that's recommended by the experts. Now, before I go into those, let's pause for a moment and just ask maybe an obvious question of why do things like read relationship books or get card games to help with conversations with your partner? Well, the main thing is that the relationship itself is a living entity, if you will. And just like we human beings, we need nurturing and care. Well, so do our relationships. The relationships themselves need nurture and care. And by doing activities like reading books together and that kind of thing where we're focusing on the relationship itself, it can really enhance and nourish and nurture our relationships and keep them healthy. Or if we're kind of getting lazy in our relationships, relationship is starting to feel kind of lifeless, it can breathe some fresh air into the relationship and really remind us of why we fell in love with each other in the first place, and remind us to keep that love alive, right? Keep the fires burning, as the saying goes. I also wanted to share with you some of the benefits of doing these kinds of activities that care for and nurture the relationship. First benefit that I can think of is that by reading books, listening to audio recordings about relationships and so on, we get to gain perspectives and learn things that we might not already know. And second to that is learning skills that we might not have already developed. Or thirdly, we can learn some fresh takes on skills that we already have. Maybe learn how to tweak them a little bit to enrich them, make the skill even better. Another benefit is that we can potentially save the cost of, or some of the cost of, therapy. Now, that's not disrespecting therapists and couples therapy. In fact, as a life coach, I often refer couples to therapy or therapists for therapy work. Reading books and so on can enhance our work if we're doing couples therapy work. Sometimes, many times, the therapists I know will often assign homework, which is a book or multiple books for couples to read together to help them understand different principles and perspectives about relationships. So those are just a few of the benefits that we can get by taking on reading and studying and working on the relationships themselves. All right, now I want to share with you 5 books. 2 of these I have read, and 3 are in a stack of books to be read. So full transparency, I have not read all of them yet. The first book, and the one I work with the most when I work with couples, is Dr. Marshall Rosenberg's book, Nonviolent Communication, A Language of Life. Now, that might not sound at all like a relationship book, and yet it is the most profound book I've ever read myself, and has had the greatest impact for me across the board in all of my relationships, because it deals with how to communicate. Second book I recommend is The Art of Loving by Fromm. Now, this book has been around since I was a young guy, so you can tell by looking at me it's been around for a while. But it's a great book. It's not very long. I think it's right around 100 pages, if I remember right. But it's just a classic, and it's one that you'll find yourself, if you keep a copy around, you'll go back to it over and over again to read sections or just reread the whole thing. It's just a wonderful book about the art of loving. The third book I recommend, and is recommended by the experts, is called Attached, and it's written by Dr. Amir Levine, or Levine, I'm not sure which way the doctor pronounces their name, and Rachel Heller. The book deals with attachment theory and talks about our different attachment styles, if you will, and how we often will attract partners who have the opposite attachment style, the opposite of ours, and how that can both create conflict, pain at times, but it can also present great opportunities for healing and for deepening our self-awareness and deepening our relationships as well. Fourth book is one you may have heard of. It's been around for a while, and it's just a classic in terms of relationship books, and it's called Getting the Love You Want by Dr. Harville Hendrix and Helen LaKelly Hunt. This is one that's in my to-read list, so I can't tell you too much about it yet, but I've had several friends who have read it with their partners, and every time you search, what are the best books on relationships, that this book shows up in every list. So Getting the Love You Want by Dr. Harville Hendrix and Helen LaKelly Hunt. Fifthly and last in the book list is The 7 Principles for Making Marriage Work by the famous Dr. John Gottman, also co-written by Nan Silver. Again, this is in my to-read list, but if you haven't heard the name John Gottman yet, just do a search on his name, Gottman. He has an institute up in Seattle, Washington, that is world famous, and he has done decades of extensive research on couples relationships. So this is the book that every therapist I know or have ever read, this is the book that they recommend. So get it in your stack of books to read, and sit down, or maybe get 2 copies, one for yourself and one for your partner, and read through it together. I am absolutely sure that you will greatly benefit from doing that. Lastly, I mentioned I would recommend a card game, and the card game that showed up in my research as one of the best is called Intimacy, a toolbox for deeper connection and conversation with your partner, and it's created by a company called BestSelf. Now, I've not used this particular card game myself or with my partner, but I have others that I've used and that I recommend. Anything like this that can help stimulate or help spark deeper conversation, in my book, is a win for everybody. Often we find ourselves talking about the same things or not talking much at all, and that becomes one of the issues. So having something like this, when you have a date night, or you can set aside, let's set aside a night a week or every other week to just sit and talk about our relationship, talk about the relationship itself. All right? Those were the books and the card game I wanted to recommend. If you want to check any of those out, I'll provide links in the blog post or Facebook page or on YouTube, wherever you might be watching this. I hope you'll check out at least one of the books, maybe grab a copy of the card game and put them to good use to nurture, nourish, and enhance your relationship with your partner. Thank you for watching. I wish you peace and joy, and I will see you again soon in another video.